The fashion world often looks perfect from the outside, but behind the lights, cameras, and magazine covers, some stories end in tragedy. In this video, we'll look at 5 real cases of famous fashion models whose deaths were disturbing, mysterious, or violent. These are not rumors, they're true events that show a darker side of the industry most people never see. It was June 28, 2008 in New York City. Ruslana Korshunova, a 20-year-old Kazakh-Russian fashion model, had just returned from Paris. She had been modeling since her teenage years, appearing in Vogue, Elle, and several ad campaigns. Her career seemed promising. She had a job in Texas the next day and planned to celebrate her 21st birthday in Pennsylvania 3 days later. That morning, she went to a nearby store to buy fruit. At around noon, she spoke on the phone with her boyfriend, Mark Kaminsky. They planned to attend a friend's birthday party that evening. At 12:19 p.m., she logged into her social media. Then she made a phone call, not to her mother, boyfriend, or friends. The last person she contacted was Vladimir Vorobev. Ruslana had met Vladimir at a Moscow party in December 2007. They dated briefly. At the time, she was emotionally drained from constant travel, one day working, the next at parties with wealthy men. Court documents would later show that in 2006, when Ruslana was 18, she had traveled on Jeffrey Epstein's private jet to his island in the U.S. Virgin Islands. It's still unclear what happened there. When Ruslana met Vladimir, he introduced her to a self-help group called Rose of the World. She joined a 3-day seminar costing $900. The group was led by Vladislav Novgorodtsev, a Russian millionaire known for flaunting his wealth online. But beneath that image, the group resembled LifeSpring, a controversial U.S. self-help movement from the 1980s that shut down after legal trouble. After Ruslana's death, journalist Peter Pomerantsev went undercover to investigate Rose of the World. He described the training as intense and emotionally damaging. Participants were pressured to share painful personal stories under loud music and shouting. Ruslana was deeply involved, crying, laughing, and opening up about her past, including the loss of her father. She even introduced her friend Anastasia Drozdova, another model, to the group. A year later, Anastasia died in a similar way. By March 2008, Ruslana was back in New York, but her behavior had changed. Her social media posts became emotional and cryptic. Friends noticed she had become aggressive, missed work, and lost weight. She seemed distant. Vladimir said she once told him, "Even if I'm not here anymore, the whole world will talk about me." On the day she died, Ruslana told Vladimir she wasn't feeling well. Minutes later, she called him again, but he didn't answer. At 2:30 p.m., she fell from her 9th-floor balcony at 130 Water Street. The concierge, Mohammed Nakib, said she looked small and pitiful on the road. Her arms and neck were broken. Something about her hair caught attention. It looked uneven, as if hastily cut. This was confirmed by Sergei, a mortician in Moscow. He said it appeared chopped, not damaged from the fall. Police found no signs of a break-in or struggle. Surveillance showed no one entering or leaving the apartment. There was no evidence of another person being involved. The case was ruled as self-harm. But Ruslana's mother, Valentina, didn't believe it. She said Ruslana had been doing fine recently. Ruslana had also spent the night before watching a movie with an ex-boyfriend, who felt she had come to say goodbye. Some of Ruslana's friends said she wanted to leave modeling. She had asked Vladimir for 10,000 rubles, about $400, 10 days before her death. Rose of the World became the focus of scrutiny. Peter Pomerantsev called her a typical victim. Another expert, Rick Allen Ross, said groups like that can be addictive and dangerous. One member claimed Ruslana had struggled emotionally for years. Novgorodtsev denied any connection to her death. He later shut down the group but rebranded it in 2014, still offering expensive courses targeting people in distress. Ruslana was buried in Moscow on July 7, 2008. Her mother chose the city because Ruslana had loved it. It was where she once found happiness. In 2024, new U.S. court documents confirmed her trip on Epstein's jet at 18. What happened there remains unknown, but many believe Ruslana's pain was never fully seen, and that she was led to her end not by a single event, but by years of neglect, false promises, and emotional pressure. It was February 13, 2007, in Montevideo, Uruguay. 18-year-old Eliana Ramos had been living with her grandmother in a small home in the city. She was a well-known model in Latin America with a promising future. But that day, her grandmother found her unresponsive in her bedroom, lying curled up with her eyes open. Eliana had died alone. Her death came just 6 months after her older sister, Luisel Ramos, passed away in Montevideo under similar and tragic circumstances. Both sisters had been models, and both lost their lives due to health complications believed to be connected to extreme weight loss. Their story quickly spread and sparked worldwide concern. Luisel was born on April 12, 1984, in a middle-class area of Montevideo called La Unión. She came from a family of athletes. Her father played for Uruguay's national football team in the 1966 World Cup, and her mother was a gym teacher. future. Louiselle began modeling as a teenager and quickly found success in South America. She stood 5 feet 9 inches tall and fit the image many agencies wanted. But according to her family, she was told she needed to lose a large amount of weight if she wanted to continue moving forward in the industry. She listened, but the changes she made were extreme. Reports say that in the final 3 months of her life, she ate little more than lettuce and drank only Diet Coke. Her body mass index dropped to 14.5, far below the World Health Organization's limit of 16 for severe thinness. By the time she passed away, she weighed just 44 kilograms or around 96 pounds. On August 2, 2006, during Montevideo Fashion Week, Louiselle walked the runway. After reaching the end, she turned backstage, where she suddenly collapsed. At 9:15 p.m., she was declared dead. Doctors said it was heart failure brought on by malnutrition. She was 22 years old. Her death shocked many. It pushed the fashion industry into the spotlight and raised serious questions about the intense pressure placed on young models. 1 month later, Madrid Fashion Week introduced a rule requiring a minimum BMI of 18 for models. Other cities like Milan followed, but London Fashion Week chose not to, calling the rules undesirable and unenforceable. Then came Eliana. Born on December 23, 1988, she started modeling at age 16 and was signed to Argentina's well-known Dato Models agency. She traveled throughout Latin America and spent several months in Japan with Louiselle in early 2006. By 18, Eliana's career was taking off. She stood 5 feet 7 inches tall and months before her passing, weighed just above the BMI standard used in Madrid. But after Louiselle's death, those close to her noticed a change. Friends said Eliana was deeply affected and had been grieving for months. She began to lose weight quickly. Some believed it was due to stress, while others thought she was still trying to meet the modeling world's strict demands. On February 13, 2007, she was staying at her grandparents' home. Her grandmother later said she walked in and saw Eliana lying still with blank eyes and her knees drawn up. She had died in her sleep. Doctors believed the cause was heart failure caused by malnutrition. She was only 18. The deaths of Louiselle and Eliana Ramos shocked the fashion world and brought more attention to harmful expectations in the industry. Their story was often compared to Brazilian model Ana Carolina Reston, who passed away just 3 months before Eliana from similar complications. Eliana's agency denied that her death had anything to do with an eating disorder, claiming it was likely due to genetics, but doctors and police disagreed. The official diagnosis once again pointed to symptoms of malnutrition. These weren't isolated incidents. They were signs of a deeper problem, one where appearance was often valued over health, and young women paid the price. Louiselle and Eliana were both talented, both chasing success, and both gone far too soon. It was January 1978 in Philadelphia. A 17-year-old girl named Gia Karanji was dancing in a small nightclub. She looked nothing like the other girls trying to get into modeling. Her short, dark hair, sharp eyes, and bold presence made her stand out. She wasn't trying to impress anyone, and that's what caught the attention of Maurice Tannenbaum, a local hairdresser and photographer. Maurice asked to take her photo. What started as a few pictures at a nightclub turned into something much bigger. The photos eventually reached Arthur Elgort, a respected photographer for Bloomingdale's in New York. From there, Gia's life changed quickly. She left Philadelphia and moved to New York City. By the end of that year, Gia had become one of the most talked about new models. She signed with Wilhelmina Cooper, a former supermodel turned agency owner. Wilhelmina took Gia under her wing not just professionally, but personally. Gia, whose mother had left when she was 11, found some stability in Wilhelmina's support. Things took off fast. Gia modeled for major brands like Versace, Dior, Yves Saint Laurent, and Giorgio Armani. She also did ads for Maybelline, Vidal Sassoon, and Levi's. Top fashion photographers, especially Francesco Scavullo, were drawn to her look and attitude. Scavullo called her one of a kind. She didn't follow fashion rules, didn't care what people thought, and had a natural beauty that made her unforgettable. Gia had a unique style. She wore men's clothes, old jeans, and boots. She was open about her sexuality and had her first serious relationship with a woman named Sharon Beverly, whom she met at a gay club in Philadelphia. One of Gia's early and iconic shoots featured her posing nude with model Sandy Linter. The image became famous, but behind the scenes their relationship was intense and often one-sided. Gia tended to fall for women she worked with, but those feelings weren't always returned. At 18, she was earning over $100,000 a year. By 1979, she appeared on the covers of Vogue and Cosmopolitan. She was being called the first supermodel, but behind the glamour, things were starting to fall apart. Gia had started using substances in her teens. In the modeling world, especially places like Studio 54, substance use was common. Gia began with marijuana marijuana and pills, then started using stronger substances. At first, she tried to hide it, but over time it became harder to miss. She skipped photo shoots, left sets without warning, and sometimes never showed up. On one Vogue shoot in 1980, she suddenly climbed out of a window and vanished. That same year, Wilhelmina Cooper died. Gia took the loss hard. Her substance use became worse. Photographers noticed she looked different: bloated face, marked arms. For one Cosmo cover, Scavullo had her hide her arms behind her back. The dress she wore was chosen to cover her body. In 1981, she needed surgery for an infected wound on her hand. That same year, she was arrested for driving while impaired. She left Wilhelmina's agency and joined another, but her career was already falling apart. One of her last jobs was a Vogue shoot in 1982. After that, no one called. Gia went back to Philadelphia and entered rehab. For a time, things improved. She stayed clean for 7 months, worked in retail, and later at a nursing home cafeteria. But by late 1985, she had relapsed. With no money left, she began exchanging intimacy for money in Atlantic City. She was seen sleeping outside and was reportedly attacked. In December 1985, she was hospitalized with pneumonia. Doctors then discovered she was suffering from AIDS-related complications. Her health declined quickly. In October 1986, she was admitted to a hospital in Philadelphia. On November 18, 1986, Gia Karangi died at just 26 years old. Her mother was by her side. No one from the fashion world came to the funeral. Photographer Francesco Scavullo, one of her only true friends in the industry, didn't learn of her death until weeks later. In 1998, HBO released a film about her life called Gia, starring Angelina Jolie. Jolie said Gia didn't need anything to stand out. She was a drug. Gia was one of the first openly gay supermodels and one of the first female celebrities to pass away from AIDS-related complications. Her rise and fall were both fast and deeply personal. It was 1999 in Jundiaí, a small town in Sao Paulo, Brazil. 13-year-old Ana Carolina Reston Marcan stepped confidently onto the stage of a local beauty contest. With her parents cheering from the crowd, she was named the new Queen of Jundiaí. It was a small title, but for Ana, it was the start of something bigger. Her mother later said Ana stood out because of her slim figure and elegance. After the contest, Ana dropped her last name and began pursuing modeling seriously. Her family lived a modest life. Her father worked for a German company, and her mother sold jewelry. But when a fashion agent saw Ana's potential, he offered to introduce her to a top agency for 100 British pounds. Her family agreed. Ana's career quickly took off. She was photogenic and determined. Although just over 5'6", she claimed to be slightly taller to meet industry standards. It worked, and in 2003, after 4 years with Ford Models, she joined Elite, another major agency. That same year, she received her first international assignment, modeling in Guangzhou, China. She was 18 and alone in a country where she didn't speak the language. At one casting, someone told her she looked fat. That single comment deeply affected her. In a letter to her mother, Ana wrote that she felt small and lost. From that point on, her behavior changed. She began to eat less and became more isolated. Back in Brazil, friends and journalists started to notice. In 2004, writer Laura Ancona met Ana and noticed something was wrong. Ana only drank juice and admitted she had trouble keeping food down. Her diet sometimes included only apples and tomatoes. Her aunt Mirtes said young models like Ana were being sent far from home and left to fend for themselves. Dr. Marco Antonio de Tomaso, a psychologist who worked with models, said these young women were exposed to intense pressure to be thin. Many relied on extreme diets, medication, and starvation just to keep working. Laura Ancona said she had seen girls faint backstage and use harmful substances just to stay in shape. Ana's family depended on her. Their savings had been stolen, and her father could no longer work due to his health. Ana's income became their only support. In 2005, she left Elite and accepted a job in Mexico. Her agency warned her not to go, saying the market there preferred curvier models, but she went anyway. In Mexico, she was unhappy and shared a cramped apartment with 17 other girls. A Brazilian agency eventually paid to bring her back. She then traveled to Japan before returning home in late 2005. Her appearance had drastically changed, and her mother was alarmed. Despite efforts to help her recover, Ana's condition continued to decline. She stopped modeling and began working at nightclubs, handing out flyers for little money. In September 2006, she missed a second appointment with her doctor. Her agency had started encouraging her to get help, but she kept denying anything was wrong. By October, she was in severe pain and was admitted to a hospital. She had been taking painkillers and weight loss pills. Her condition got worse and she was moved to intensive care. Ana weighed only 40 kilograms or 88 pounds. Her body was shutting down. After 21 days in the hospital on November 15, 2006, she passed away at 7:10 a.m. She was only 21 years old. Her death was caused by multiple organ failure, a serious infection, and kidney complications. Her story made headlines across Brazil and the world. It brought attention to harmful industry practices. Some denied any responsibility, while others began calling for change. Over time, new rules were put in place in several countries to protect young models. Anna's mother now runs a small jewelry shop named after her daughter. A portrait of Anna hangs on the wall. She says, "She's in the ground now. I don't know how to live without her. She was my right arm." Anna dreamed of becoming a global supermodel. She made it far. But behind the camera, the pressure slowly pulled her apart until there was nothing left. It was November 19, 2009, in Paris, France. Doll Kim, a 20-year-old model from South Korea, was living alone in her apartment in the 10th arrondissement. The day before, she posted a final entry on her blog titled "Say Hi to Forever," along with a video of the song "I Go Deep" by Jim Rivers. Hours later, her boyfriend found her unresponsive. Doll was not just another model. She was already a major name in the fashion industry. She walked for big names like Chanel, Dries Van Noten, and Maison Martin Margiela. She had become a familiar face in New York, Paris, Milan, and London. Her image had appeared in Vogue, Harper's Bazaar, and in campaigns for brands like H&M, Gap, and Topshop. In 2008, Anan magazine named her Model of the Year. But behind her growing fame, Doll was struggling. The world saw her as talented and unique, known for her sharp features, blonde hair, and outspoken personality. But privately, she was dealing with emotional exhaustion and deep isolation. Born on May 31, 1989 in Seoul, Doll grew up between South Korea and Singapore. From a young age, she had a creative mind. She painted, made video art, and even held a solo art show in Seoul in 2007. She had a tattoo of a small star on her left hand and was known for her dry humor and sarcasm. She also wrote openly on her blog, "I Like to Fork Myself," which slowly became a window into her emotional struggles. In 2007, she made a post saying, "I'm going to smash my face. My life as Doll was so miserable and lonely. I love you all." She later wrote, "Kidding, I'm fine, just tired." These types of posts became common. Her public statements were often followed by attempts to downplay them, but the sadness behind her words was real. In private, Doll spoke about feeling drained and unable to sleep. She often ignored calls from her agency saying she felt overworked. Even when surrounded by people, she felt completely alone. In October 2009, she wrote, "The more I gain, the more lonely it is. I know I'm like a ghost." She later added, "Mad, depressed, and overworked." Her career continued to grow. She appeared in campaigns for Topshop and Chanel and was on the cover of Rush magazine in Australia. She stood out in the fashion world, but the pressure took a toll. Doll had been in the spotlight since her debut in Paris in 2007 and had barely slowed down. She traveled constantly between fashion capitals, and the fast pace wore her down. In a blog post from October 15, 2009, she questioned the lifestyle she was living. Freedom comes with such cost, but is it even freedom? There must be something wrong from the core. In November, she returned from Seoul Fashion Week and was back in Paris modeling for the agency Next. On November 18th, she posted the music video and title. The next day, she was found in her apartment. A note was left, and authorities confirmed she had taken her own life. Her family and agency representatives flew to Paris immediately. Her agency shared a short message saying she was a top model and a great friend. News of her passing spread quickly. Her blog became a memorial filled with messages from fans who never met her but felt connected to her words. People remembered her for her writing, not just her beauty. Her honesty made many feel seen in an industry that rarely shows its true face. In South Korea, her passing sparked deeper conversations. It followed a number of similar tragedies involving public figures. Experts pointed to issues like high expectations, a lack of mental health resources, and strong cultural pressures. Doll Kim's life was filled with creative talent, sharp insight, and global success. But her story also shows how some struggles remain hidden behind even the brightest spotlight. She was the 9th South Korean public figure to pass away that year. She was only 20 years old.